Welcome, returning and future harlivy monsters, to the second part of my top 5 Harley and Ivy show moments. This is the video where you get me talking about the gayest and best parts of the Harley Quinn animated show for however long, because we're gay and it's what we deserve. I assume you all know the show, that's why you're here, so I won't waste your time explaining its origins. I recently covered my top 5 Harley and Ivy season 1 moments in a previous video, and I also introduced the show there, so you should go watch that first if you fancy and you haven't already. If you haven't seen the show, go do that, please, it's really good. Otherwise, let's get on with exposing the queer, longing depths of my mind and the love between my favourite try-hard anti-heroes. Hello, my name is Mage, and welcome to Black and White Thinking. So I'm going to start with an episode that feels like it probably shouldn't be here, and a moment I like more because of what it represents than what the moment is actually made up of. In episode 3 of season 2, we get the Gotham City Sirens, a lot of pressure via proposals, and an insight into how deep Ivy's anxieties go in regards to where her life is heading, and more importantly, who she chooses to spend that life with. I really am not a fan of the phrase gay panic. I've mentioned that before, the origins of the term are less than ideal, but I do love it when Ivy does the gay panic. Throughout the show, we see this back and forth in Ivy's minds over her feelings for Harley and the fear of facing such feelings. This episode is a perfect example of Ivy being so scared of the truth that she would rather be miserable than risk losing the most important people to her because she was too honest. This episode is enjoyable enough, until the last few seconds I guess, but it isn't necessarily one of my top favourites either. However, like I said, it does have one of my favourite moments. In the penultimate scene of the episode, we see Ivy and Harley regroup after a stressful night, and they have one of my favourite conversations in the show. It's one in which Harley is just there for Ivy, wholly supportive, and they spend some time murdering men and holding hands, and it's just one of my favourites. It's a moment where a lot is done via animation and a lot less in words. This scene is seriously romantic. Ivy needs to talk and Harley simply listens. She acknowledges Ivy's worries and reassures her the best that she can. The watching the sunset together, the moral support, the shoulder leaning, the hand holding, the panicked look on Ivy's face when she realises how happy she is, and the running to Kite Man afterwards because of how much that scares her. So much is said in so little screen time, and this is one of those scenes that always makes me want to yell at the people who say they never saw this relationship coming. This show is overtly queer from the offset, and look with your eyes. Harley and Ivy's love is blatant, even in the episode where Ivy gets engaged to Kite Man. I honestly think this episode might be my favourite. Definitely a top 3. Episode 6 of season 2 isn't only named after one of my favourite shows, not only does it have some of the best character moments, but it also happens to be one of 2 good rewrites of Harley's problematic origin story. Mad love is a thing that I have learnt to accept after all these years, but honestly I could kiss, given consent of course, Patrick Schumacher for taking Harley and Joker's meeting, and this moment here from BTAS, and completely flipping it on its head. The relationship of Harley and Ivy has been important for almost 30 years now, and nods like this mean a lot, at least to me personally.
Hey, aren't you that plant lady, Poison Oakie?
Ivy, Poison Ivy.
Sorry. Harley Quinn, pleased to meet ya.
This episode gives us big-ass past and future revelations about Harley and Ivy's relationship. And whilst the whole episode is really kind of hard to reduce to one singular moment because it's so great overall, I think Harley realising here about the ferret ficus situation is my favourite moment. I also like Ivy's smile when she gets the plant too, but these two moments seem perfectly comparable to me, moments of awakening, Harley seeing Ivy in a new light here for the first time, paralleled with Ivy seeing Harley and humanity as a whole in a new light here. This moment at the end of the episode is truly when Harley realises it was Ivy the whole time. I mean, quite literally in regards to the Mr. Ferris story that Joker told, but also when she realises how much Ivy is willing to give her, how much they have given each other already. This realisation allows her to walk away from Joker, past and present, with an honest understanding of her best friend. She walks away from the person who distorted what love means for her, with the person she loves most in the world, who she will now be able to love in new ways. Harley never goes back after this moment. From here onwards, she just falls harder and harder for Ivy. Harley realises here that Ivy's done more for her than anyone, and that she would do anything for Ivy too, and that they are totally in gay love, which leads me to my next favourite moment. Again, episode 7, like episode 6, is an episode with a lot to like. We have our first and best explicit kiss, for example. I mean, look at that zoom out, it makes me laugh every time. This is a good kiss, and it's way better than any of the comic kisses tend to be. I'm a big fan of this episode for cracking into Ivy's skull a little bit more, and for how far these two idiots go for each other. This episode has a lot of self-sacrifices between these two, and also my favourite Man-Bat cameo by far. Again, Bane, Man-Bat, they both need to join the squad. I need it to just be Harley, Ivy, and a bunch of big, beastie men. Now you'll have to excuse me for a moment as I wax a little poetic about what I really like in this episode. Specifically why I like the final moments before the kiss actually happen, and what they represent. My favourite moment in this episode is the one in which Ivy catches Harley, saving her from falling into the pit. Not just because, Ivy saves Harley from death and then they kiss, but because this act completes a motif that weaves throughout the first season that gets us this moment. The whole simple metaphor of trust exercises. At the beginning of season 1, we start with Harley falling, being pushed by the Joker over and over, and having no one to catch her but the Batman, who's going to haul her off to Arkham. Ivy tries to catch Harley, but Harley never really lets her. Eventually, we see Harley reach out to catch Ivy, an olive branch, an offering of loyalty. Then we see Ivy reach out and catch Harley, and Joker kills her for it. Then we see Ivy catch Harley, and together they get revenge on the Joker. Throughout the whole season, this falling motif is used to represent the push and pull of trust in Harley and Ivy's relationship, to represent how close they are at any given point. And this motif of Harley falling is not one that is exclusive to this show, but Harley specifically. This is another testament to the writing in the show and how they understand these characters. This falling motif started with Harley being thrown into acid by Joker, by being thrown out of the window by Joker. Harley falling is a metaphor, and has been throughout dozens of iterations, for her terrible relationship with Joker, for the lack of control and dread that relationship represents.
Oh, I fell hard. Like, out of a plane without a parachute right in your dumb fucking face kinda hard. I lost all sense of who I was. I only had eyes for pudding.
When Harley falls in 207 of this show, it is a choice, a sacrifice, a moment of release, a leap of faith and love. The parallel of Harley being pushed by Joker, but choosing to jump for Ivy, is kind of a big deal. It's a clear indication of Harley's growth and how she is healing from a very abusive relationship with a very bad man. And the writers make it even better, even gayer, when they have Ivy decide to jump too, and save Harley from the fall. Joker pushes Harley, but Ivy jumps too and pulls her back up. In this show, she does it many times, but Ivy saving Harley here, after Harley has embraced healing and personal choice, after Ivy has spent the whole episode being all, life is a pit we'll never get out of, but still jumping into said pit for Harley, is big feels, good writing. This moment is it's my goddamn bisexual right to be this dramatic. And I love it because of how unabashed it is, because of how goddamn feral Harley is. I love when Harley is presented as a monster, created out of love and misunderstanding, and that's fine, actually. So many other women would be punished for having so many feelings on television. And the writers of the show know this. And they don't fucking care.
Look, I can explain the whole Game of Thrones Khaleesi thing, okay? All this has just been me avoiding something that I need to talk to you about.
The first time I heard this reference to Daenerys Stormborn of the House Targaryen, first of her name, Khaleesi of the Great Grass Sea, Mother of Dragons, the Unburnt, the Breaker of Chains, Queen of the Andals, the Rhoynar, and the First Men, Lady of the Seven Kingdoms and Protector of the Realm, I swear I almost cried. Harley loves Ivy so much, she might take over the world, and Ivy talks her down. This not only gives me joy because Harley's agency is never really diminished here. She's crazy and that's fine, Ivy still loves her. But men do this shit all the time and they never get punished for it. This is a silly animated show about supervillains. Let the morality rest. Let the gays be happy. But honestly, this show, these writers, they have such a remarkable understanding of Harley and Ivy's relationship. And they constantly draw on motifs and parallels from previous iterations of their characters. Just as they understand the Harley falling imagery, so do they understand the imagery of Harley and Ivy stopping each other when they go too far. That they are each other's people. They're only people. Nobody else matters, and I'm totally fucking okay with that. These two have been through a lot. Let them be. Like I said, straight couples get these kind of dramatics all the fucking time. One of my favourite dumb romances ever is that of Geralt and Yennefer in The Witcher. In their first meeting in the Last Wish short story, their relationship is very much, I trust no one and I hate everyone and everything, except this absolutely batshit stranger that has just bumped into me. This moment where Ivy asks,
"What's the end game? What do you really want?"
always gives me big Yennefer Geralt and his Last Wish vibes. This is exactly what Yennefer asks Geralt.
What do you desire? Immortality? Riches? Fame? Power?
There is nothing more romantic than having the ability to have everything in the world, everyone bending to your whim, to have the ability to have everything you've ever wanted, the ultimate power over your life, and you just sacrifice it all for a sardonic, big-hearted pretty witch. Nothing more romantic than someone asking, "You can have anything. What do you want?" And them simply replying, "You." I love it. I'm gay. I don't care. Okay, bonus moment, because it's so small and tiny, but it's also gorgeous, so I wanted to point it out, but it's hardly a whole point on its own. When Harley thinks Ivy is gonna die, again, she loses her goddamn mind. Again. And this whole episode where Ivy is brainwashed by Psycho, Harley is just running around, irrationally confessing her love for her best friend to basically everyone she runs into. The best of all of these moments is when Harley tells Clark she will go to the Phantom Zone with Ivy when he threatens to send her there forever. So, 1. I love the idea of Harley and Ivy floating through the Phantom Zone like little otters, holding each other's hands for all eternity. 2.
I love her more than anything in this whole world!
Is pure. And 3. Harley Quinn loves Poison Ivy so much that she finds the strength to push Superman, Clark Kent, Kal-El, son of Krypton, the goddamn Man of Steel. Ugh, that's pretty sexy of you, Harley. Okay, so one final moment from this miserable queer. Rosebud. I love the appearance of Rosebud. As I have gone on about in this video already, I love the little references to old school Harley and Ivy, and specifically the Batman animated series. They show how much the writers of the show actually care about this couple, how they put in time before they wrote it to look back over what came before. The comic writing for Harley and Ivy has been so lacking over the last few years, and their relationship in live action is non-existent. Ivy feels like DC Comics' enemy number one sometimes, honestly. But not here though. These dudes drink the respect Ivy juice. Everything about this moment is a nice big fuck you to the 20 odd years of hypersexualization and censorship that Harley and Ivy have suffered. This moment acknowledges that things have been bad, but they can be better for Harley and Ivy. So I'm going to hold DC to this standard, to this level of intimacy and appreciation forever, because I know it can be done now. And in the past, DC has been nothing but homophobic in regards to these characters. So just more of this, please. All of this, all the time. Please. Alright, that's it for now. There were 5, well, 6 bisexual cheesy romantic moments from season 2 of the Harley Quinn animated series that I personally adored. This show is honestly great. The character depictions of Harley and Ivy are great, the portrayal of their relationship is great, and at this point I'm hyperfixating and I don't really care. Fingers crossed that season 3 is bigger and gayer than what we've already got. I hope you enjoyed this video in some way. I hoped it filled some time. Well done if you made it through all of my harlivy videos. You lot are my favourite people ever. Again, if you want to see my top relationship-y moments from season 1, you can find that video here and linked below or on my channel, where I have a whole playlist of Harley and Ivy stuff. If you want more of that sad Harley and Ivy content, tell me. I love having the excuse to talk about this show and these two with like-minded nerds. Mage out.